Hello, everybody. It's Monday night. That means it's Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. On tonight's show, it's going to be another fun show where we're going to do a rapid fire questions for each other. It's our show that we've done a couple times now, Rack Our Brains, and we're going to ask each other opinionated questions. And you guys listening too, can please ask us some questions, and maybe we'll get to some of those throughout the show as well. No trivia though. So again, opinionated if you can. So before we do that, let me introduce myself and my co-hosts. I'm Tom Hunyadi. You may know me from my other show, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast for myself, and my co-host Annie Nichols talks all things McCartney. And I'm being joined by my three colleagues and three people that I look forward to every other Monday to hang out. And we talk all things solo Beatles and Beatles. Like, we're going to be really close because this is just, I've just been grinning. As the days inch closer and closer and closer to Thursday, just the smile on my face is just getting bigger and bigger, and the anticipation just... Oh man, but anyways, let me introduce my three friends here. First of all, he's our YouTube guy. He's been doing this long running YouTube channel now for what, 10 years has it been now, Joe?
Almost
10 years.
Yeah.
And he does so many great videos, whether they're reviews or doing countdowns or rankings or rants or just all out fun video. Record shopping videos are great too. So let's say hi to our good friend Joe, aka Mean Mr. Mayo.
Hi everyone, nice to be here with everybody. Tom, Kit, and Ken.
Hey,
Yep.
Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Yes. So next up is our queen, and yeah, again, another awesome background shot there of the yellow submarine. But we know the Queen, Kit O'Toole, from her wonderful books, including Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours Through the Beatles' Lesser Known Tracks, and the work she did with Ken Womack earlier this year, Fandom and the Beatles, as well as FAQ, Michael Jackson, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop, right, Kit?
That's indeed right, Tom.
And how are you?
I'm doing great and super excited for this big weekend. And I know
show.
The really big show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I know Ken, Joe, I know all of us and all of you out there are really excited.
Yes. Got the Carly Simon song in my head, Anticipation. Going nonstop right now. Just that line. Anyways, last but definitely not least is the OG of podcasting. He's, hey, what? Well, when did the show start? 2009. Fab Forum, was that?
That was 2009.
Yeah,
right
2009.
When the Beatles on CD, the remastered.
Yeah.
And Rock Band, same time. 9909.
Exactly. 9909. So
yeah.
You guys could have been one of the very first Beatles podcasts, if not the first out there. But nowadays, Ken from his wonderful podcast called Things We Said Today with Alan Kozin and Darren DeVivo. And you also know him from his long running syndicated radio show, Every Little Thing, where he plays literally every little thing. And I know because I've listened to the show quite a bit. So is Joe. And so many out there that are watching today have listened to Ken's show and just have learned a lot from just listening to the show. And I've learned a lot as well, too. So thank you, Ken, for that. And Ken, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm kind of in a daze at this moment, as the three of you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So
there's a good reason.
There's a good reason. Yes. And you can announce
everybody.
Well, yeah, you can.
The reason.
Yes.
The reason.
The reason. Go ahead.
The reason.
What's the reason, Ken?
Why should I tell you the reason?
Gary Wilbur is smiling right now.
The other podcast show that I do, Things We Said Today, we just wrapped up a 4-hour interview with Peter Jackson, which will be posted by tomorrow. And I can't believe it happened. This all happened so suddenly in the last couple of days. But, his production company contacted us. And apparently he's a fan of Things We Said Today and listens to our show. I don't know how long he's been listening. But, we're one of the podcast shows that he approached to be on. And he couldn't have been nicer. He answered every single question. And if we had more questions, it could have gone on longer.
Wow.
He said, as
That-
long as it didn't run into Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Wow.
Right.
I mean, that is generous.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
So-
I can't wait to listen to that
Me
show.
either.
It's,
you're going to learn
He's-
so much stuff
Oh, I bet.
about Get Back.
and technology as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, when he wrote to us, he didn't want this to sound like a promo interview for Get Back.
Mm,
He just wanted to have a casual conversation about the Beatles. So I thought I'd start off the conversation by finding out how he got into the Beatles. What was it like being a Beatle fan in New Zealand? He was born in 1961, so he was a little kid during all the Beatlemania and everything. And within like 10 minutes, it already went right to Get Back. So you couldn't avoid it.
right.
And so much information
That's
he's-
great.
about what he observed, because he watched all the footage,
Hmm.
he's heard all the audio, and you learn so much. I
Has it
certainly did.
been 2 years him working on it? How long was he working on this project?
4 years, I think.
It's 4.
4 years?
Pretty
Okay.
sure it's 4.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and of course with
Amazing.
all the delays, and actually, if it wasn't for COVID, which the horror of COVID, we all know about.
Mm,
We'd do anything if it never happened, but it actually gave him more time
right.
to work on this and make it even longer.
Right.
Yeah.
It could have just as easily have been a 2.5-hour movie,
Mm.
but he had more time on his hands and he kept adding and adding and adding to it. And that's how it became not so much a feature in the movie theaters
Right.
as it now is a Disney Plus. And you probably all know, because the word has leaked out in the last few days, that it's
Right.
not 6 hours.
Right. Nearly 8.
It's almost 8 hours
Yeah.
that we're
Right.
getting. So yeah, it's amazing. I think anybody, if you got time tomorrow, watch this interview. It's really wonderful. It's going to be hard to
Right.
ever top this.
Right.
4 hours with him.
Yeah. Again, congratulations on that, Ken.
Thank you.
But things must continue. So extra texture, read all about it. Ken Michaels, you are up with the news, my friend.
Okay, well, as everyone here knows, Get Back premieres on Disney Plus November 25th, starting Thanksgiving this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's really all the news that I have this time out.
Now,
I mean,
now, have you,
that's all that
have
you need to know right now.
Have
Yeah.
you,
Right.
did you get Disney Plus yet, Ken?
No,
Okay.
we're gonna get it. Don't worry.
Okay.
Woo!
Probably last second. But
Mhm.
also Peter Jackson is going to be on Wednesday night,
Mm.
Stephen Colbert show. You should catch that. 60 Minutes ran a piece on Get Back, premiering, as I said, this Thursday, with interviews from Peter Jackson and Giles Martin. There have been, I don't know how many premieres in the UK. I'm a little confused. We've all seen photos of Paul with Mary, his daughter, and you've probably seen photos with Julian and Sean together, and
Right.
Stella. And does anyone know if there were several premieres? Because I'm not really sure if they were all.
than
I only
one, I
knew of the
think.
one. I only knew of the
Yeah.
one.
What about there was an
Okay.
LA premiere?
Yeah, there was, but I don't know if that was, star-studded or not, or there were, I don't know, because I
think
know.
that's the one that Julian and Sean were at, I think, the
Mhm.
LA one. I
Mhm.
think.
Okay.
Oh, was it? Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was the London one. Okay.
But in one of the trailers for the film, Danny Harrison is there.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
funny. He says, I'm always sitting there going, how long is it going to be before dad breaks the band up?
Yeah, I love that
I
quote.
love that. Some interviews from Paul McCartney to discuss his new book, The Lyrics, you can now watch on YouTube, including his November 5th appearance at London's South Bank Centre at Royal Festival Hall, and last Thursday when he was interviewed for Barnes & Noble by their CEO, James Mount. Barnes & Noble are now giving Paul's book the honorary title of Book of the Year
Yes.
to their company. Yeah, so I think at some point, because we got so much to talk about tonight, but I watched the interview, the one at South Bank Center, which I thought was very good, despite the fact that you'd never know that Paul had a life after 1970. But the
Typical.
questions were really good, and this should be about his entire career, but most
Right.
of the questions were directed about his period in the Beatles, his family, how important Liverpool was, what has been a big influence on his songwriting overall. But it's still a very powerful interview, I think. Ringo Starr is now teaching a masterclass on drumming with an online course on drumming creative collaboration. The course started actually today. Ringo is involved with a company called Masterclass, which is an online education subscription platform which aids underserved communities. David Rozier, the founder and CEO of Masterclass, is quoted as saying, Masterclass puts you in the room with the world's best giving members, unprecedented access to the greatest minds of our time. If you want to know more, you can go to masterclass.com. In the meantime, last Friday, the 10-inch vinyl version of Ringo's latest EP was released for Change the World. Did you get it, Tom?
Still waiting. Still waiting.
What was this? I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, no, Friday. Yeah, Friday. Amazon which is usually reliable on getting on day of, has now, I have no idea where mine is, and they said I should get it by tomorrow, but we'll see.
Yeah. That's just great. I should have gotten it. I didn't know I slipped by.
Remember, there was a big gap between the CD and this 10-inch vinyl version. A long-lost recording that features both George Harrison and Ringo Starr has been found after 53 years. This never-before-heard song, called Radhe Shyam, was written and produced by broadcaster and journalist Suresh Joshi for a 1968 documentary film, East Meets West. The song was rediscovered by Joshi during lockdown in his loft in Birmingham. He told BBC Merseyside a friend helped him find the song, and it was played on their station before being previewed to 100 Beatle fans at the Beatles Museum in Liverpool. This original recording took place at Trident Studios in London, with George and Ringo adding guitars and drums to Hindi language vocals coming from Ashish Khan. And Joshi said that he met George and Ringo when George's interest in Indian culture was at its height in 1968, after the Beatles went to Rishikesh to study transcendental meditation. Joshi said about George, we started talking about philosophy in general. And as for the song, Joshi says, the song itself revolves around the concept that we are all one and the world is our oyster. And he says the song is still relevant to this day. He says that is something we have all realized during this pandemic. Interesting recording. Does have a very psychedelic feel. Some people seem to feel that it may not sound like George on there. I think it does. It can also sound like Eric Clapton if you listen to it. Definitely is Ringo on drums. Just in time for the holiday season, brand new George Harrison merchandise is now available, including an exclusive crew neck and limited edition 5-ornament set featuring George and his famous gnomes, recreating the classic album cover for All Things Must Pass. Also available, puzzles, pins, vinyl, CDs, t-shirts, and more. Interested? Just go to store.georgeharrison.com. From the most authoritative news source on the planet, Darren DeVivo, we learned that singer-songwriter Lori McKenna has just released a Christmas EP called Christmas Is Right Here, with 6 Christmas songs, 5 of which are originals from her. The other is a cover of Paul's Wonderful Christmas Time. Lori is a 3-time Grammy Award winner. The EP is available for streaming or for purchase now. It's Lori McKenna. Just released is a brand new book, The Beatles' Fab Four Cities: Liverpool, Hamburg, London, New York, by Richard Porter, David Bedford, and Susan Ryan, described as the first travel guide to focus on the 4 cities that define the Beatles. Includes a wealth of information, connections, timelines, Beatles trivia, and illuminating photographs. The Beatles' Fab Four Cities invites the reader on a cosmopolitan trek across continents, tracing the Beatles' rise to fame from one metropolis to the next, flush with timelines, stories, trivia, and numerous links and connections between the cities and both pop cultural and local history. This is a travel guide like no other.
And I can say, I mean, these are 3 very authoritative guides
Right.
Yes.
that wrote this, and I want to congratulate them because this was hard to publish. They encountered a lot of, COVID-related delays with the publisher and so forth.
Sure.
So congratulations to them. I'm so glad it's finally out. So I mean, I'm sure if you're planning on traveling to any of these places, or even if you're not, if you're just an armchair traveler, go get this. You can't find better authorities than these 3.
And I like how they link these 4 cities because
Mhm.
they're also important to the whole history of the Beatles.
Exactly.
Very arguably the 4 most important.
Yep.
Our good friend and colleague, Owen Lynn, has a new book coming out on George Harrison titled
Excellent.
George Harrison in the 70s, which will be available on paperback on March 22nd next year. We're very happy to report that Billy J. Kramer is back on the concert scene as he'll be doing a show at the Warehouse in Amityville, Long Island tomorrow night. If you live on Long Island, be sure, if you can, to go see Billy. Concert time is 6 p.m. He'll be joined on stage by Joe Rafano of the Beatles tribute band called Liverpool Shuffle. And sorry to report that the concert for Bangladesh Revisited, the tribute concert that I rave about every year, that was going to take place November 26th at the Tilly Center in Brookville, Long Island, has been canceled due to problems with Ticketmaster, partly because of COVID.
Oh, sorry
When
to
it
hear
does
that.
happen, you'll find out about it from me. And I guarantee you, if you see that show, it's one of the best concerts
Well,
you will ever see.
You said you're emceeing the event?
I didn't say that.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay.
No. But I've seen 2 of their shows, and it's
Okay.
amazing. It's about 3.5 hours long, the
Okay.
whole show. And finally, we have to note the passing of Keith Allison. Keith got his start as a guitar player with Ray Peterson and later with the Crickets, and he was actually the cousin of Jerry Allison of the Crickets. To many, he was a regular performer on the 60s music program Where the Action Is, and he was very known for having a strong resemblance to Paul McCartney. He also was a member of Paul Revere and the Raiders as their bass player from 1968 through 75. Monkees fans are aware that Keith played guitar on several of their albums: Headquarters, The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees, Head, and Instant Replay. He even co-wrote a song with Mike Nesmith, Auntie's Municipal Court. And in 1976, Keith reunited with 2 of the Monkees and went on tour with Mickey Dolenz, Davy Jones, Tommy Boyce, and Bobby Hart, with Keith as their bass player. As for his Beatle connections, he was Ringo's musical director for his TV special in 1978 to promote his Bad Boy album. Keith assembled the band that played in the show with Dee Murray, Lon Van Eaton, and Dr. John. While George Harrison appeared on the TV special, Ringo reached out to John and Paul to see if they would be on it. And Keith said John couldn't do it because he hadn't picked up a guitar or sung for a long time and was busy being a full-time dad to Sean. Paul said he had just completed a TV special for ABC, An Hour with Paul McCartney, and couldn't do any network TV specials for the next 6 months. This comes from an interview with Keith that's on classicbands.com. Keith also performed and collaborated with artists like Al Cooper, Johnny Rivers, Harry Nilsson, Alice Cooper, and Waddy Wachtel's band. Keith Allison was 79. I know my wife used to watch Where the Action Is back in the 60s. So
Oh, wow.
we saw Keith all the time. And, his face does certainly resemble Paul at times.
Really?
But yeah, that's all the news I have this time.
All right. Very well. Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Always something to learn. And it's just amazing how much news there is every other week.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but like I said at the beginning of the show, we're going to be doing a Rack Our Brains episode here. And that means you guys can also throw in some questions for us. I figure we're going to do a round each. We've got 3 questions for each other. None of us know what we're going to ask the other person, which makes the show a lot more exciting. And like I said, we're going to go round around. We'll go once around. And Kit, if you want to see if somebody asked a question, maybe we can do a quick audience question and then do another round, and so on if time allows.
Okay.
So Let's see here. I'm gonna put my hand around here and see who to pick first. But anyways, why don't we start with Ken Michaels? Ken, what is your first rapid fire question?
Okay. Maybe from time to time we've touched upon this here on the show, and maybe your answer might even be different now. But I would like to know from the three of you, what song from Paul McCartney's catalog, Beatles, Wings, solo, would you like to see him perform in concert that he has never performed live, even in the Beatle days? And this could be an original song, it could be a cover of the song, could be anything you'd like for him to do. You know, could be fireman music,
Right.
you know, anything that you like. It's got to be something that he's never done, even in the Beatle days.
Right.
You could pick one song of all of them. What would that be?
Amazing. In a realistic fashion, with his voice as we know it today, I have been jonesing for him to do Spies Like Us live, and I think that's something that he can still realistically do, and we know the band could handle it musically as well, so that's my pick.
Excellent choice. Joe, how about you?
Well, putting the issue of how Paul sounds or not, on the side for this, I've always wanted him to do Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, and if they could do some kind of arrangement of it. Linda's so vital to it, though.
Right.
It's not really realistic, but that's one that I've been wanting him to do for a long time. I mean, going back 30 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's always the first thing that pops in my mind if I could have him do one song. So I'll stick with it.
All right.
It's kind of ironic. Paul's one of those artists that has the luxury of having several #1 songs that he's never done live. And say,
Right.
he's never done live.
Yeah, and we were just talking with Lawrence Juber about that and how they were rehearsing with a little luck, but it just didn't sound right.
Didn't they?
Right.
Didn't they?
Yeah.
I was going to say that too, but didn't they do that once? Did they
No.
perform it or attempted to perform it?
No,
I'm
they
talking
just
about in the
just
70s or-
rehearsals, just
Yeah,
rehearsal wise.
rehearsals.
That's Kit.
Well, this would be not considering his current voice, because this would have sounded better many years ago, and this is a deeper track and one that I wish he had included in the lyrics book. Somebody Who Cares. I would love to hear that live. I love that song. It has a lot of personal meaning for me. It's just so beautiful. Part of maybe the acoustic part of the set.
Yeah.
I adore it. And I would love to hear that live. But I don't think he could do that now. But I think, maybe back in, when I saw him in 89 or so,
Right.
I would have loved to have heard that.
Okay.
It'll be interesting when Paul returns to the concert stage, which I believe he will. How well his voice will hold up for 3 hours on stage, and what songs he'll be able to do well and what he'll struggle with. But for a long time now, because I think that his rockers just translate so well live, I would go with Helen Wheels. I just think Helen Wheels would really kick mighty butt
Yes.
on stage. And even at times when, if you think he might not be able to handle the high vocals, you've got Abe there. So I think the band could do a great job on Helen Wheels. I tend to think of those songs, or Girl School, or The World Tonight. Those would be songs most of all that I would like to hear him do, that never has he ever done live.
Excellent. Okay, good question, Ken. Thank you. Joe, why don't you head off to question 2?
All right, Tom. My first question is sort of in the same kind of vein in a way as Ken's that I had here. And I'm going to put it to you this way. This is like make-believe time, okay? Suppose Paul can either have one of two things. He does a show, which I know we all want to see, that's all solo material and songs, a lot of them you haven't heard before ever do, for like 2 hours or however long you can go to, and you can get a show like that. You can attend the show, or you know that he's going to do, this is fairy tale time, but I'm saying imagine that he's going to do 2 studio albums that are like turn out to be like fantastic. They're going to be like the best albums he's ever done in his career. He gets like raves, and they're like on the top of the charts, like Band on the Run, and the biggest thing. Which would you want? Would you say, well, I'd rather have the 2 classic studio albums, or no, I'd
I
rather
see
go
what
to
you're
the
saying.
show,
Yeah. Okay.
with all
right.
solo material.
Okay, Kit.
Oh man, that is tough. That is really tough because
You ain't kidding.
yeah.
I had to figure something on.
Wow, that is a tough question because on the one hand, I mean, love live shows. On the other hand, I mean, it's like new material, and like incredibly high. I guess I would say the new albums. I guess I would say that because I mean I've seen him so many times live that I guess I would love to hear like top shelf new material. I guess I would choose that, but boy, that's close. That is a close call.
Ken?
When you say a concert of all solo material, did you say that they're all songs he's never done live, or it could be any?
Ideally, never. I know that would really appeal to you, Ken.
Oh
Me too.
God, yes.
But I would assume you'd have to sprinkle in some, that you've heard before. Mostly all new solo material.
This is really very tough because I think that it's a crime that Paul has neglected so much material from his solo career live, and we may never ever get any recordings or get to see him do so much of this material. It will never be documented as live recordings. But there's nothing more exciting to me as a fan of his than when he puts out a new album. I always look forward to that more than anything else. And at this point, I feel so blessed that we've had so much great music coming from him, but I can never get more new music from this man. I want every last ounce of creativity that pours out of that brain. And if they're 2 high caliber albums like a Chaos and Creation, something like that, I'd take that over the concert.
And I am in 100% agreeing with you, Ken. I would definitely take new albums any day of the week over Paul. A subpar vocals from Paul these days. Just my opinion on his vocals. I know not every song he's singing live is bad, but there's some that maybe he just shouldn't do anymore live. So I would definitely take the albums over the live stuff for sure. So yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Leaves me, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe I should have said in this fantasy scenario, he's been getting voice lessons and really he sounds good, really.
Right.
Because
76 all over again.
I always say, well, I would always take new music over, because that's what lives on after he's gone and everything. Right. You have more, especially if they're going to be great albums. They would turn out to be these fantastic albums. That's what lives on, even though you have your memories of seeing them live. But I got it was really tough for me too, though. I'm coming to think I'll pick the albums, but really I was right there because I thought, man, I would like to see him do Old Siam, Sir, and I would like to see him do Cafe on the Left Bank and stuff that I've never seen before. So, but yeah, I'll go with the albums, but it's not by a lot. It's really like close.
It's very close. That was a tough question. That was tough.
Good question. Yeah. All right, kids, you're up next.
All right, I'm going to throw in a little controversy here, which is and Ken in particular is going to have a tough time with this question, but that's okay. I live to torture it. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm ready.
All right. Solo songs. Which do you think is the most, in your opinion, one of the more overrated solo songs?
I gotta think about it.
Well, how many do you want?
Just off the top of your head.
Just
how many do you want?
Yep. It's just, one of what you think is kind of an overrated.
Yeah. I mean, right
Cool.
off the top of my head, I tend to think Back Off Boogaloo is a little overrated. Myself, even though I do find Ringo's drumming, very good on that track. I just think it's weak myself. So does it deserve the top 10 the charting that it got? Maybe, but for some reason, that one I've just never thought was as good as people might think it is.
Interesting. Okay. Wow, I asked a real challenge.
Have another 20 minutes, please. Supposed to be lightning, right? First thing comes to your mind.
Yeah, I
right?
know it's a tough one. I have a couple of contenders, but
wish you would have asked me in advance.
mm,
Who's up? Me or Ken, by the way?
Either or. I mean,
yep.
Who's got an answer?
I need to think more.
So anyway, that's a very nice background you got there, kid.
It can be a song, you're sick of, or you just.
I'll go. I mean, I got a couple in my mind, but I don't know. Everybody seems to really like My Brave Face, and I don't dislike it. Not at all do I dislike it, but I just don't think it's all everybody makes it crack up to be. I've said every time this comes up, I say that a lot. I don't know. I mean, it was not like it was a number one hit or anything that I'm saying. Oh, it's like something really big that Paul did, like Uncle Albert or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. I've never been that wild. I know Ken's. I'm not looking at Ken directly with this. I've never been wild about the Elvis
That's
Costello,
all right.
Yeah.
Collaboration. I like a couple of stuff. But that one, I just didn't. I always thought this one would have been a better single to lead off with than My Brave Face. But that's just my personal taste. I don't like the way it kind of changes its mood. That middle part and everything, and then you go back into it. And now that I'm alone, I don't know. It's just never been a favorite. That's all I'll say.
All right.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah.
Ken, overrated.
Overrated. That's very tough. Also, because there are songs that I'm kind of burnt out on.
Okay,
like Imagine, but I will always say Imagine's a great song.
Yeah.
I am kind of tired of Maybe I'm Amazed. I think it's
Mhm.
played to death.
Okay.
Anytime that I'm listening to classic rock radio and they announce coming up Paul McCartney next, I turn to my wife and I say, "I'll bet you it's
Maybe I'm Amazed."
and that's what it is. Always Maybe I'm Amazed.
Right.
I love the
Was
song.
it tired of songs we're tired of, or tired songs we think are overrated?
But overrated. Not that everybody says it's the greatest song, but Dance Tonight is not. A song that I think.
Okay.
I mean,
That
it stays
was a
in my
runner-up
head
for me.
Right.
It stays in my head a lot, but
Right.
it's it's not that much work in the composition.
Yeah.
Constantly repeating everybody.
It's an
wanna
all
dance
together
tonight.
now kind of track, I think.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. There are some songs that I think go on too long, which like Let 'Em In, for example, which I still love as a song. I just think it's not worthy
6
of
minutes.
5 minutes,
Yeah.
So that would be it. Maybe Dance Tonight.
Okay.
But I love My Brave Face though.
Yeah.
And Back Off Boogaloo.
Yeah. Kit.
Proud of you, Ken. Good, great
Okay.
job. Great. Proud of you. Yeah. So for me, we've kind of discussed this before in the show, but whatever gets you through the night. I've never understood why that was a number one.
Almost said
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't get why that went to number one. I mean,
Even
it's
with
fun.
the horns. Even with the horns.
Don't
Even
say
with
Elton
the
John.
horn.
Don't
What,
say
what
Elton
is this problem you have with horns?
No, I love horns.
No,
No,
No, I
I'm
love
saying-
horns. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
with
We
you.
love horns.
Oh.
But I mean, even with that, I don't know. Although the remix is good, the remix, the remix improved it. The remix
I
improved
really
it.
like the new remix, that last one
Yep,
that we
but
had.
I just have never been that crazy about that song. I've just never really, thought it was worthy of being number one.
Right.
There's so many other great songs of John's that
Right.
Oh.
could have been number one from that period. And the runner up is My Valentine. I just don't really, that one, I just don't think that's among Paul's best lyrically, and so that's the runner up. But whatever gets you through the night, yeah,
All right.
Overrated. So
All right,
yeah,
gotcha.
got to have some controversy going on.
All right. Well, I'm gonna continue with that, and I want to give Ken another hard one too, because
Oh boy.
I know this is his favorite Paul record here. Okay, so it's the 23rd hour. Paul changes his mind right before Flowers in the Dirt come out. He wants to add Flying to My Home instead. But you get to suggest what song he takes off that record to replace it with.
Ooh.
What song do you take off Flowers in the Dirt to add Flying to My Home?
Who's first?
Don't Be Careless, Love.
Okay, Ken. Careless Love.
That's a song I really love the song, but it took me longer to like that song, and once I did, I was hooked on it. Very, very quirky. Gotcha. But you know what's similar with those two songs, Tom? They both start off with Paul a cappella.
A cappella, there you go. Yes, good point. Good point. Joe?
Gee, it's so hard to choose. There's so many. No. Motor of Love.
Okay.
Just repetitious and dirgy, and I'm not wild about it. I would have really loved Flying to My Home on there. I would have loved if they could have put Back on My Feet somehow onto that.
Well, if you took Motor of Love off, you probably could have fit both of them on there.
Yeah.
However, Kit?
I guess I've never been that insane about how many people. I think probably that would be the one I'd cut. Yeah, just I don't know. I mean, it's not bad. It's not a bad song, but I actually warmed up to That Day Is Done more than Don't Be Careless Love. Sorry, Don't Be Careless Love more than that one. So I guess I'd have to cut that.
Gotcha.
You know, some of these songs I gained an appreciation for on the demos.
The box set.
Yes.
Yes.
To tell you the truth, I actually like those. Some of them better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, How Many People is a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I think it's single worthy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great hooks in there, great melody. You know, when I think of reggae, I like that one probably more than Sea Moon.
Really?
So
yeah. I don't know. It's not bad. I mean, it's it's a tough call.
Yeah.
Okay.
I go with Motor of Love myself. I think that one just goes on a little bit too long myself, and kind of a little too slowish for me. I guess I just don't like the arrangement of it. You know, that's just my opinion. I've still yet to really appreciate that song as many times as I've listened to that album. So
see, I love Motor of Love. I don't know. I'm like one of the few defenders. I've always liked that song. I think it's I can see your point about the length. I see your point about that. I will agree. But it was kind of pretty, pretty song, pretty lyrics. So so
good. Excellent.
There are certain songs that Paul does that I think go on too long.
Yes.
That one you probably could have trimmed 30 seconds to a minute maybe, but it
I'll
has
give
a really nice Beach Boys feel to it.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that. Okay, Kid, is there something out there that you've noticed? Question from the listeners.
All right, let's see here. Okay, some of these kind of went away here. Let me see. Others have joined in here. Tim Allen said he'd eliminate Rough Ride.
Okay.
By the way, let's see. And others are saying they would agree on Motor of Love. Let's see. Okay. Here's Tony. Do we wish John and Paul were at the concert for Bangladesh? Do we, think we wish they would have, participated, or should, are we?
I mean, yeah, who wouldn't have wanted to see both of them at that show? I mean, it would have been even more magical than what it was. I mean, even if they just performed a solo song a piece, kind of like Ringo did, that would have been completely fine with me. I mean, I don't think, I'm sure, yes, everybody would have expected them to play a song together. And if they didn't, they probably would have left pissed off. But if they were just there just to do a song or two from their solo career, I think that would have been wonderful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that would have been great. But I mean, but it on the other hand, I don't know, maybe that would have taken too much attention away from George.
Possible.
And this was George's night.
Yes, true.
So I mean, in some ways that's okay, here's some more of them. So I mean, maybe it turned out the way it was supposed to. Okay, here's a
can I answer
go
that?
Ahead. Sorry, go right ahead. Sorry about that.
To me, I've never been one to wish for a Beatles reunion unless it was something that all four of them truly wanted to do. I mean, that alone would be cause for celebration, Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason I'd ever want a Beatles reunion of any kind.
Right.
They all proved themselves on their own. You had Ringo there at the concert for Bangladesh too. It was great just as it was, having Bob Dylan there and Leon Russell and Ringo and Billy Preston. So yeah, I would have loved to have seen John and Paul there, but only if in their hearts they wanted to do it.
Right.
I tend to agree, with Ken, basically, and I'm okay, I don't need a Beatles reunion. I would have liked them to get together to do one show. If John had been here, maybe Live Aid. They do a little, that's when they got back for a little set or something like that. One shot for old time's sake. I think it was a little too early, Bangladesh time too. Too early. And if they were going to get on, I'd rather them do their own thing completely separate.
Right.
Not that they were playing as a unit or two or three together. I'd rather it just be one at a time doing something, and then somebody else come on, and so forth.
Yep. Joe Mantaneo asks an interesting question, and I kind of answered mine at the beginning, so the rest of you can answer if you want. What songs were not included in the Paul McCartney lyrics book that you wish had been?
I mean, for me, right off the top of my head, Riding to Vanity Fair. That's the song, one of the songs I really would have liked the most.
Yep.
I don't think I've given it much thought.
The End of the End.
Good.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which
I was kind of surprised he didn't include that.
Yeah, I think that's one of his greatest songs of all time.
Yep.
And also, I still think he never included any song that he wrote with Elvis Costello.
No.
Oh, that's right. He didn't.
Which is strange.
Yeah.
Joe?
I mean, I'm trying to think. I haven't gone through the whole book, just certain songs. So I'm drawing a blank. Anything that glared at me and said, "Why didn't I wish he would have talked about this or that?" No, I don't. I can't think of anything, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I know he missed a lot, obviously.
Yeah. There's
some big songs. I mean, Silly Love Songs isn't in there. It's another, I mean, With a Little Luck. I mean, the number one songs that, I'm sure we would like to hear a little bit more of that just aren't in the book.
I'm like, all his catalog is going in my mind now.
Yeah, I know, it's a lot.
There's plenty. There's plenty.
Yeah.
There's plenty.
Hey, I got Check My Machine, so I'm happy.
That's right.
When you think lyrics,
you think
Check My Machine.
My Machine. Yes,
that was the shocker. That was really a shocker.
Doesn't get deeper than that.
Right. Okay.
Is Early Days in the book? I think it is.
No, Early Days.
It isn't.
No.
Nope.
Well, Early Days is when I like to hear him.
Yeah.
Expand on more.
Only Love Remains. Would have wanted.
Yeah, I was disappointed in that. Yeah, I thought that might
Press, maybe.
Yeah.
Nod your head.
Yeah, you're right.
Poetry.
Yes. All right. Let's keep this train moving.
All right.
Okay, this time I'm going to reverse it, and I'm going to go Kit O'Toole first.
Okay.
What is your question?
Okay, let me see which one I think would be the best one. All right, what do you think is the best Beatles-related movie?
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Like not one of their movies, but something
Right,
related
yeah,
to the Beatles.
yeah, not one of their own. Yeah, one
Right.
of the, yeah. Like, it could be a movie about them. It could be a movie.
What's the one when they're in Hamburg?
Backbeat?
Backbeat, yes.
Don't
Backbeat.
take my movie.
Yeah, Backbeat would. Yeah, Backbeat's been my favorite of the things that I've seen so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was going to say Backbeat. I think they kind of nailed the feeling of the early
Right.
Beatles in there. And is it Ian Hart who plays John in that?
Yes.
Is his name? I think he's the best John I've seen. Every time I watch that, I believe that's a young John Lennon. When it's hard to do, because the Beatles are so specifically, they look specifically way we know them, and the actor speak a way we know them, and you always know it's an actor when they're doing it. But when I watch that, I can buy into it. Unlike, say, Nowhere Boy, which I just couldn't get into that actor. He never felt like John to me.
Okay. Ken?
I have to agree with all of you. I mean, the one that just came to mind was Backbeat,
Yeah.
and a lot of it has to do with the acting, like you said, Ian Hart and the guy that played Stu Sutcliffe, whose name I can't come up
I
with.
forget Stephen something.
Stephen Dorff.
Steve Dorff, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And you really believe that there was, a love between the two of them. And it's an avenue that really hadn't been explored all that much, in the history of the Beatles, the relationship, the strong bond that they had. Some people think that John was maybe closer to Stu than he was with Paul.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think Paul used to there was a little problem there, right? Which was
I mean, that's
jealousy.
Used to lash, jealousy.
Jealousy.
Used to lash out at Stu for not playing well, or
there's a lot of good stuff in the Mark Lewison book. Tune in about that kind of thing. I think between the two of them.
Yep.
All right. Kit, thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh wait, I gotta share mine.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, I thought we'd have more diverse answers. Backbeat is mine as well. Ian Hart really, I think, is the best John out there. I love the soundtrack too. I thought they really did a great job of kind of capturing almost almost punk kind of spirit of that time. We're getting a lot of interesting, a number of people also say that, but also said Nowhere Boy, Two of Us.
I was going to say Two of Us also. Two of Us I like. I just don't think the actors would.
Yeah.
Especially the Paul Eden.
I want to Hold Your Hand is mentioned, and that is a good movie as well. It captures kind of the spirit of Beatlemania.
Right. Agreed.
So that's a good one too. So
think of that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, kids. Joe, Mr. Mayo, what is your second question?
All right, here we go. I'm not going to word this. I'm going to try to do it straightforward. Okay, now this is either Beatles or solo, and you have to pick something. You pick something. Okay.
The song.
What's
something?
The best song? You ruined it.
Go ahead.
What's the best song Paul ever wrote?
Oh wow, the best song Paul ever wrote. Whew.
I know it's going to take time probably, but maybe you had some things in your mind you've thought from time to time, as I have. I've narrowed it down to like 3, 4, 5 songs I think maybe.
And this is Beatles or solo?
Anything, yeah.
I've been the last few years I've been very high on Penny Lane. I just think it's an amazing piece of pop, and lyrically, I think it's one of his. I'm going to go with Penny Lane right now.
Okay. Anybody else ready?
I'm ready. Eleanor Rigby.
Call me in a week.
If you want me to give mine and give you some time, or I'll talk. It's not going to be much time. I can drag it out if you like me to drag it out.
Yeah, I mean, I almost said yesterday. But Eleanor Rigby, that's on another level. I mean, that's poetry.
It really is, and I'm just that again, I want that fatigue thing to get out of there when I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Because when I first heard that, I was a kid, and it was kind of deep for
Right.
me as a kid. I thought it was amazing, a masterpiece.
Yep.
It really,
Right.
really affected me. It was really intense, and then you hear it so many times, and you
Right.
grow up, and it's like
Right.
decades later, and you're like, yeah, Eleanor Rigby, he's doing Eleanor Rigby again live,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
it's so great. But that's not my pick necessarily.
Mhm.
All right.
But
Okay.
Kenny, you ready? Or you want me to go a little longer? I can go a little
I
longer.
Suspense is killing
I
me.
can name 10 songs that I think are his greatest songs,
Okay. How about if I just while you're thinking
Yeah.
of those 10?
It's also a combination of song and recording, probably Hey Jude.
Mm.
That's
A
not a bad
powerful
pick.
melody. His vocals are amazing. The constant the coda that goes on for like 3 minutes.
Right.
Everything that's associated with it.
Okay.
The worldliness of the song.
Yes.
Kind of like Let It Be in that regard. But
Yep.
you
All
know,
right.
ask me my top 10 next time instead of one.
Yeah.
It's
Don't
just
want to make it hard.
yeah.
Joe.
But I there's two that I'm always struggling with this. I get to like name two, as I'm doing this. Even though I said only one, I'm always thinking these days either Let It Be or maybe I'm Amazed.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go with Let It Be. I said I've talked about this so much lately. I don't know. It's every time I hear it, unlike some other songs I named where I'm like, oh no, I gotta hear Hey Jude's on again, Yesterday's on again, Eleanor Rigby is on again. When I Let It Be, I always want to hear it. I always want to listen to it, and it's kind of deep. It's got all kinds of uh feeling. Even it's got a little
Which
religious
version?
connotation to me. Well,
What?
the album version with the guitar,
Okay.
the
Guitar
biting
solo.
guitar
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah.
Although it's not was intended religious, and
Right.
I take it as Paul's mother, but it has a
Mm.
double meaning. Paul said it one time. If you want to take it that way, that's fine too. The
Okay.
reason maybe I'm amazed was in running. I just love how that's really Paul pouring his soul out, and his like uncertainty and a deeper kind of song about himself.
Mm.
Okay. Cool.
So.
All right,
It's
Joe.
funny, we do a solo Beatles show and we all picked a Beatles song.
Didn't we? Didn't we?
Did.
Well,
We're
maybe I'm
dissing
amazed.
Paul here.
Yeah.
And this is why people keep asking him Beatle questions.
Oh, Matthew Smith wants to change his vote to My Love. I knew,
sure, buddy.
I knew you loved that song, Matthew. You could say
Right.
you'd hate it all you want.
Yep. All right, Ken, you are up next.
Okay. Many years ago, on Things We Said Today, we did a show on this. And I wanted to ask my co-hosts, what are the biggest mistakes the Beatles ever made as a group?
As a group.
But I want to trim it down to just one. What would you say? And you might think they never made a mistake. But to me, it's as perfect a catalog as you can get. But if you could pick one thing that you think was the biggest mistake they ever made together,
yeah,
what would it be?
Yeah, I would
All
be.
Right. Wait.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Why don't we start with Kit?
Oh man, no. Start with Tom because I'm still thinking.
Yes,
Tom was like
too.
raring to go. He's like,
Come
I
on,
know.
there's only one that
Listen,
it can be.
well, no, well, listen. People
still
will. A
thinking
lot of
about
people will
Sweet
say Magical Mystery Tour. I know.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people will say that. I tend to believe that if they maybe waited another month or two in between, after the release of the White Album, give it a few more month break, maybe we would have had a little bit more time with the Beatles, or maybe another album or two. So I think the biggest mistake was coming back too quickly from after the release of the White Album.
Very interesting that you say that, because in one of the shows that I did, I think when I was speaking with Al Sussman and Tom Frangione, I kind of got the feeling from Paul that he had to keep pushing the band, because if they were lax for a while, if they went for any long period of time, it would be even more of a struggle to get them back. And who knows, maybe John would want to do more stuff with Yoko. George was, spending time with the band, and it's
Dylan,
and all that. So it's interesting that you bring that up. Interesting theory there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
All right, Joe, you wanted to be next?
I'm sorry. I was thinking Kid asked the question for some. I'm like, I'm
Oh, no.
sorry. I'm forgetting who asked what. I thought you were going to go last, Kid. Well,
no.
Let me say, I thought, I always think right away, like Tom said, Magical Mystery Tour pops in your mind because that's what's gone down as though that's the one, like, mistake they made, something they did wrong, so to speak, because it wasn't received well and all that. But if I'm going to try to get a little more creative, I wonder if we can count this. Would you count this before Ringo when we're talking about the choices for the Deco edition, which might be, I don't know, more Brian's idea. I don't know. I think it was really right, and we're not so much the Beatles as a group, but to try to be a little different. Other than Magical Mystery Tour, which is the only thing I could really think that, oh, gee, shouldn't have done that, as it turned out, the movie. I'm thinking the material was pretty weak, I thought, overall on that. I never understood that. Although now we hear from Mark Lewison and the story about how actually the publishing company was interested in, like Dreamers Do,
Right.
there. But I would have thought, they would try to do a little more original, something that's not so outdated sounding for them. These days, you listen to it, it's easy to say, oh, that's not really the Beatles stuff. Why did they go? That was their act at the time. That stuff they liked and sang. But they seem to always want to kind of push the barrier. This John and Paul did. I'm surprised they would go with stuff like they did on that.
Well, it was a representation of what they were doing live. And I know that in the case of Brian, he wanted the Beatles to showcase all the variety within the group and to have 3 lead vocalists, on between those 15 songs. So you put 3 originals on there, and you do maybe they could have had more originals. Maybe they weren't too proud of the original stuff that they had come up with by that time. Yeah, but it's a fascinating document of where they were at by January 1st of 1962, and a huge difference once Ringo joined the band. Definitely.
Yeah.
I always like to compare the Decca to Please Please Me, and what a difference in a year. From all the performing that the Beatles were doing and adding Ringo into the group, but it's still an interesting collection. But it's that's a good suggestion.
And I'm still trying to figure how they wrote all those songs, because growing up, I always thought, oh, they had a backlog of songs. They wrote so many songs together. They just dug these all out. No, it's almost like they didn't really have anything much to speak of. Ask Me Why, Love Me Do, P.S. I Love You, and so forth. And then all of a sudden, it's like one after, just overnight like that almost, right, one after the other, as if they knew how to do this since 1960 or something, and they had these. I don't get that part. Sometimes it makes me wonder, did they really write them? They must have.
They blossom so quickly.
Oh, don't start another conspiracy with the Shakespeare conspiracy. Did Shakespeare actually write all this stuff?
Don't forget Bernard Purdy played the drums.
Yeah, right.
Kit, what's your answer?
I think the answer, I think now I've got it, which is don't think because you are a great artist that you think you can also be a great business person. In other words,
good. Yes, I think I know where you're going.
When Brian died, they should have hired another manager to not Alan Klein, but another manager to really take care of business matters and so forth, because managing yourself not a good idea. And I think when they tried to take that on, starting Apple, and we all know what happened there, going into Magical Mystery Tour, because at first I thought about mentioning Magical Mystery Tour. That was the first thing that jumped into my mind. But then I thought, wait a minute, would they have even done Magical Mystery Tour if Brian had still been on the scene? Probably not, or he would have.
You don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Or,
I don't think he had as much control, and he was losing a little control.
He probably was, but
influence.
He didn't have as much influence by that time. That's true. But he might have said, boys, we need to think about financing this. And, he
could have found him a better project as well.
Yeah, something along those lines, but definitely the whole Apple mess. I mean, all the money they lost on that, they needed somebody to guide them. And so, as I said, just because you are an artistic genius does not mean you are a business genius.
They needed somebody who cared.
That's you. There you go. That is correct, Tom.
Well,
very,
kid,
very
I love your answer. That was really,
yes.
was perfect. You nailed it. I think that was really,
that
might be their biggest mistake. That led to everything else.
Cool. Very interesting. I will probably give the same answer that I did back then on things we said today, but that's very convincing what you just said there, Kit. But I just think that the Beatle breakup anyway was going to happen.
Yeah.
It may have happened later.
Right.
But I contend that I really wish that John and Paul let George have more songs on their albums towards the end. And certainly since nowadays, almost everybody seems to be saying that Something and Here Comes the Sun are the two best songs on Abbey Road.
Right.
And recognizing how much Here Comes the Sun is so loved now as a song, the most streamed Beatles song, and just how he was flourishing towards the end and becoming more and more prolific. And, I've often said that as much as I love I Me Mine and For You Blue, I would take just about anything that's on All Things Must Pass over those two songs. And to not really recognize how George was really growing, although, as we do know from that meeting that the Beatles had in September of '69, when John made that proposal to have a more balanced album, 4 John songs, 4 Paul songs, 4 George songs, I think 2 Ringo. John was recognizing that fact. I don't know if Paul was, but I think that had they given George's songs, given him more time on their albums, then maybe the group would have stayed together a little bit longer. I'm only thinking in terms more so of a creative mistake that they made as opposed to a business mistake.
Right.
George was really just growing in leaps and bounds, and All Things Must Pass was living proof of that.
Right.
Not to mention how active he became in supporting all the Apple artists and spending a lot of time producing them and playing on their records. And he was so fully invested in Apple.
Right.
And, in a lot of the conversations that I've been having lately on my YouTube channel and my podcast, I really think that even by mid-1970, George wasn't that convinced that the Beatles were going to break up, despite John making the announcement to the band and Paul, issuing the Q&A with his first album. So, I just wish that John and Paul would have let George have more songs on their albums.
I really dislike what Paul said during that meeting that you brought up, Ken, about how he felt that George's stuff just wasn't up to snuff until, those songs on Abbey Road. I definitely feel I agree with you 100%. You should have got more.
That tape needs to be heard more publicly.
Yes. Yeah.
John championing George.
Paul when Paul said that. And then John's kind of saying, well, Maxwell Silver Hammer wasn't exactly a work of art. I mean, that was like, whoa. Oh, boy. Like, ouch.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, there are a number of people now that will say something like, the Beatles should have included, say, Sour Milk Sea or Not Guilty on the White Album. And do we really have to have Why Don't We Do It in the Road or Wild Honey Pie? Beatle fans all have different opinions. I've also read how some of them are.
I agree with Paul's opinion. I like Paul's opinion on the Beatles' White Album.
It's sold. It's the bloody Beatles. Very good, Ken. Thank you for that. Okay. My second question. You have a newcomer, an up-and-coming fan of the solo Beatles. He's really been taking to, and you want to put him under his wing. What's one album from each individual artist do you recommend him to listen, this person to listen to get introduced to John, Paul, George, and Ringo's solo career? And greatest hits and compilations do not count.
Ooh.
You have to tell this person one album from each that you recommend that he starts, or I shouldn't say he, but this person listens to.
Okay.
So, and anyone can start if you have an answer.
I have an answer, but not going to surprise a lot of people, I don't think.
Me too.
I think for John, I would say, well, maybe, because John go a couple of ways. I would say Imagine. I just think, it's got his greatest anthem song on it. And, it's got other songs that are deep from the heart, but a little more accessible, a little more commercial, easy to take, compared to the first album. So I picked that. Then for Paul, as much as this is not my real personal favorite anymore right now, I'd say go with Band on the Run to start with, for obvious reasons. For Paul, George, All Things Must Pass. I mean, I'd go with that. Ringo, I have to say the Ringo album. I mean, I wanted to say Time Takes Time, but the self-titled Ringo album, you can't go wrong with that. It's one of the greatest solo albums, period. Not just Ringo's.
Okay. Kit?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Those exact 4 albums. That's it. I mean, those are the 4 best introductions. Now, are those 4 absolute favorites? Maybe not.
Right.
But they're, but they are the best introductions. They have some of their best known songs. And particularly for John, I don't know if I would start a complete newcomer with the Plastic Ono Band album.
Yeah.
Because as wonderful as that album is, it might be a little much for a complete newcomer. So yeah, I would go with Imagine as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ken?
It's not going to be too different from what you guys have said. I definitely would go with Imagine for John. Like you said, Joe, it's got his anthem on there. It's got accessible stuff like Oh Yoko on it and Jealous Guy, and it's got his political side too with Give Me Some Truth in there. Oh My Love, one of his greatest ballads, stuff like that. The thing with Paul, I understand that On the Run being so successful is his most successful album. If you want to go with familiar, probably Been on the Run. But if you want to go with what Paul's all about, which to me is a guy who's all over the place musically and does a wide variety of styles on his albums, I probably would go with Tug of War. Tug of War is a flawless album for me. And it's got so many different styles from him. It's got a few duets on there with Stevie Wonder and duet with Carl Perkins. You don't get much better as a great pop song with horns than Ballroom Dancing or Take It Away. The funkiness of What's That You're Doing, how tender and emotional Here Today is for John. The great orchestration of the song Tug of War, the fact that you've got George Martin there at the helm to guide him. I probably would go with that. George, as much as I love Living in the Material World, it's my favorite album. It's a very deep album, kind of like Plastic Ono Band. So I would still go with All Things Must Pass because there's so much great material on there.
Yeah.
Right.
The only thing greater than one great album or 2 great albums. So you really can't beat All Things Must Pass in that department. And with Ringo, as much as I love the period from Time Takes Time on, and I've often said Time Takes Time, the first 3 albums with Mark Hudson are among the best. So is the Ringo album. The Ringo album's got 3 major hits on it. It's got the other Beatles on there to help him out. You can't really top Ringo as a starting point for a fan. So the only difference between what you guys have said, I'd go with Tug of War. But
that's a good pick for the reasons that you stated.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would echo that. with Paul, I would just go with another album, and I would go with Flaming Pie, because he's all over the map on that one too, with duets and rockers and ballads and big productions like Beautiful Night, and obviously we have the Ringo there as well. So I mean, I think I would go Flaming Pie for Paul. I would really like to see what a younger person would think of Cloud9 as their first introduction to George Harrison. I think there's a lot of commerciality in that one. I mean, I think it's more friendly. It's not as dark or as preachy as some of his albums, but I think that one's a more friendly album to introduce people to, or especially a younger person. Ringo, obviously. And then I would like to introduce someone to Mind Games for John myself. I just think it's a more, again, a more pop friendly, album. I think, if they can, if they like that, and because there is maybe a little darkness to it, but it's more, bright, it's more John, I think, getting to the pop side of it. And then if they like that, then maybe they can venture to the Plastic Ono and Imagine. But I would like them to see, maybe like a little brighter side of John first, rather than maybe a little bit more like the darker songs from, I don't know if you want to introduce to somebody that has a, How Do You Sleep on the album, so right off the bat.
Good point.
But yeah, I mean, those would be my four. So cool. All right, that's round two. But go ahead, Ken.
I also would add, good point about Cloud9. It's a lot easier to introduce someone to a single disc than for them to absorb 2 albums.
Right, 2 albums.
So,
I thought about that too. Yeah,
it's a very accessible album, Cloud9. So that's an excellent choice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Kit, did you see any other questions, or do you just want to go into round 3?
Well, we could do one question here.
Okay.
A very topical one from Jeremy. What scene or song are we looking most forward to in the upcoming Get Back film?
Ooh. Oh man.
Well, we don't know what's going to be in yet, right?
Right.
Yeah,
we
I
don't.
mean,
Everything.
some vague. I mean,
Well, you know what I'm going to say these days, right? Should I say it again? I haven't said it.
Sure.
But I've seen it already, though. So
sure, go
that
ahead.
clip, there's a clip on YouTube. I keep promoting it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's "Don't Let Me Down." And they're doing it. It's the title. I couldn't find it for a while. I kept looking for it. Then it says "In the Apple Basement." And that's how you know which one it is. Apple Basement, it says. And so you look at it, and it's got doing "Don't Let Me Down," and Billy Preston is what really kills me in a good way. I mean, he's so into it. He's so happy to be playing along. The mood is lifted. John even says something like that, and something like that. Hey, Bill, you lifted us, or something.
Yeah.
He says in the beginning, in between. And I'm just loving it. I'm also looking forward to George walking out to see what happened. What's going on.
All right. Ken, do you have an answer?
I suppose it would be "Don't Let Me Down," because in one of the trailers, they have a moment in there, which is from the very beginning of the January sessions, where they're doing the middle part, "I'm in Love for the First Time," and then they're working out, they're singing, and they're answering back a line, which they don't use in the finished song. So it's something that they tested out that they decided not to work with. But I love that kind of stuff, as you know, the evolution of songs. So probably that. But if they do have that take of "One After 909," which is from the Apple Studios with Billy Preston, the one that's on the box set, not the one on the Apple rooftop, I'd love to see that. If they have that in its entirety.
Cool. All right.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of Billy.
Yeah.
He's really winning me over in recent years.
Me too. Yep, that's one. Also, after reading a comment, I mentioned this. I think on Fab Gab the other day on when Allison Boron mentioned she's the host of BC the Beatles, co-host of BC the Beatles with Erica White, and she works for Rhino Records and got to see kind of a preview of Get Back in LA. And she said it included the rooftop concert.
Right.
And she said the whole rooftop concert. And she said it looked incredible. She said it looked and sounded incredible. So I was just like, oh boy.
How could I forget the rooftop concert, right? You think that would be the first on everybody's tongue, right?
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, there are many things. And yeah, Billy Preston is my other thing I'm looking forward to. But,
Cool.
Oh man, a restored full rooftop concert.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be great.
That would be mine, but ever since I've listened to that Black Album bootleg from the mid '90s, I've just been fascinated with Enoch Powell and the whole no Pakistani thing. Yep. I'd be really, really curious to see if they even think about tackling that whole bit, and whether or not they put anything in text about this is why Paul is singing it this way, because of this person, and what his politics were. And then I don't know, Ken looks like you want to say something, and I'm curious to know what it is.
When we interviewed Peter Jackson a few hours ago, he said Commonwealth is in the movie, but he said no Pakistanis. Not.
Oh, too bad.
It's on the extra footage.
Extra 6 hours.
Yes. Oh, too bad. Yeah, because I remember when that bootleg came out, and then there was all this, oh my God, the Beatles recorded this racist song, and and it was taken completely out of context.
Right.
Once it's explained, then it makes sense.
Did you ask a follow-up question if that was because Paul didn't want that in the movie itself?
No.
Okay.
But they're supposed to have some footage thrown into the movie for context about that with Enoch Powell.
Okay.
Cool. They're going to throw
great.
that in.
Okay.
To kind of explain why it's there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Ken, this interview is going to be epic.
And I know there are a lot of people that tell me all the time they'd love to see a bit in there with Yoko eating George's digestive biscuit.
Yes.
I should have asked them about that.
And George having a hissy fit. Yeah.
The follow-up interview, Ken. Follow-up interview.
Yeah. You never know.
Okay. You never know. Exactly. All right. Well, I'll start round 3 this time, and I'm gonna just go with the very easy one. And I don't think it's really controversial, but I know how Paul wanted this album to be, and he wanted it to be the way it was released in the UK. Obviously, we got it with an extra song here in the States in December of '73. Hell on Wheels or not to Hell on Wheels? That is the question. Kit?
Hell on Wheels. Absolutely, that should have been on there. I mean, I think, that is such a great song. I don't know, why he didn't have it on the UK version, and he seemed kind of, baffled that it was, as I recall in interviews, that he, that it was, that the US label wanted it included, and like, what do you mean? That's an incredible song. Of course it should be on the album. So yes.
Okay. Joe?
Well, I grew up with it that way. I'm used to it there. It belongs there to me. So that I'm going based on that. I can't imagine the album without Hell on Wheels. It's not a personal favorite of mine, but I like it when I hear it. And it just belongs on there to me. I can't imagine, what was it, 9 tracks or something without it?
Yeah, nine without it. Yep.
And it's short wait too. I understand from Paul's perspective, what he's thinking, but
because it was a single, and we want to keep the singles off the records.
Yeah.
Well, I'm with you, kid. Yeah. No, Hell on Wheels.
All right, Ken.
Oh, definitely Hell on Wheels.
Yeah.
It's lacking something without it. Of course, I'm used to it that way. But, this is how Paul's mind works. He gets it in his head. Certain songs are standalone singles that don't belong on albums. And he already had Live and Let Die, by the way, before Hell on Wheels. So, but he's a brilliant man, and very often he may not know what his best material is, as we've talked about in podcast shows.
Right.
This is the man that didn't recognize My Love as a hit,
Right.
and Pete Bennett, who was, doing promotion work, I guess. He was the one who said, you got to release that as a single. It was number one for 4 weeks, and he didn't hear it in his head that way.
Yeah.
But that's who he is,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could go either way with this one. I could take it or leave it. However, yeah, that's how I was introduced to the song, was on the album. I mean, it's on the US, it's on the Columbia version, it's on the 25th anniversary edition. It's just, it's just on all of these versions. So yeah, I mean, I guess, it does add another, straightforward rocker that maybe a little more pickup on Band on the Run. However, there's already a bunch of rockers on Band on the Run. So did it need another rocker? Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I think it definitely adds, a little more oomph to the album, if you will. Did it lead off side 2? I know it's on side 2. I just
no,
can't
side
remember.
2 started with
Two started
Mamunia.
with Monia, right? But
Then No Words, then Helen
no
Wheels.
words, and then Helen Wheels. Thank you. So yeah, I'll take Helen Wheels for sure. So all right.
Part of the reason for the success of that album was the fact that it had 3 hits. And it was a gradual climb from Helen
Right.
Wheels, then Jet, then Band on the
Yeah,
Run.
Band on the Run. Yeah, good point.
And it was staying in the top 10 for a long time, and it went to number 1 3 separate times.
Right.
But
That's
it was
true.
because of adding another single. So
yeah, good point. Okay. Joe, we'll go with you this time.
Question 3.
Question 3.
All right. Let's see how I'm going to put it. A lot of people, didn't want to let the Beatles go. They still don't. My friend Anthony is like that. Well, the Beatles could have carried on and everything for more years, at least till 75, he says. But what I want to know, what you guys think is, let's suppose that, now this is along with the solo careers. Say up until 1980, when we lost John, we'll say, the 70s and into 1980. The Beatles wound up, they still made solo records. Would they be exactly the solo records that we know what they had? I don't know. But they also did Beatle records too. But the catch might be that would you want them to do that even if the Beatle albums occasionally became mediocre, a few of them? Like, it wasn't like everything was, classic good stuff, but you still had some Beatles with solo. Would you like it to be that, or would you prefer the way it turned out?
So like a Genesis kind of arrangement, like they do their solo stuff and then come back together periodically to do albums together.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I don't know what the solo albums would be, if they'd be exactly the same as we know them, or what. But they'd come back to do some Beatles stuff, but they wouldn't always be, big flawless Beatles album hits. Some of them might be like I hate to say it, but a Stones album, a later Stones album. You might get some dirty work in there, or somewhere along the line, or for argument's sake, come up with an idea. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. Is anybody ready to go?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'll go. I mean, I think that Paul wouldn't have had a problem writing enough material for the group activity and solo stuff. But however, I do maybe think, even though George had a lot of stuff with 70, with All Things Must Pass, his productivity kind of dwindled a little bit more as the years went on. Maybe he wouldn't have been as motivated. I think they would have been good albums if that was the case. But I don't think they would have been great albums. Obviously, they probably would have picked the best of the best to go on those Beatles records. The Bands on the Run, the Mind Games, maybe the Number 9 Dreams, the Give Me Love, the stuff like that. And then obviously 6 O'Clock. All those great songs that they wrote for Ringo would probably be on those records. So Ringo's solo career might have been may have never taken off if that's the case. But I think it's better off left that they didn't do albums in the 70s.
Okay.
I
Next?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it happened the way it should, because they went out on top, and I think it would have been, may have tarnished their legacy a little bit if they had come out with, as you said, Tom. I think that's probably would have happened. They would have been, good albums, but probably, how could they have possibly topped what they did in the 60s? And they couldn't, and they, why would you try? I mean, there's there's no way. And I mean, nothing could compare to that. And I think it just would have been pointless to do that. And I mean, and sure, they could have just released albums just for the love of it, obviously, but I also think they were going in such different directions, musical directions, in the 70s too. And they needed to do that. They needed to find their own voices, their own sounds. I think it happened the way it probably needed to, and we got such wonderful solo careers out of it. And sure, part of all of us wish they didn't break up, of course, but on the other hand, you think, but did they go out on top? and look how their legacy continues now. They never became uncool. They never have, because their quality never went down. So yeah, I think I'm glad they didn't do that in the 70s.
Okay, and of course, Ken wishes that the Beatles stayed together. There were never any solo albums, right? Sure. What do you think, Ken?
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said and disagree with some of it. I'm not of the opinion that whatever would have made Beatles albums of the 70s would have been their best songs, like Band on the Run or whatever. I do think that they all went in their own way. They developed their own styles on their own. And like I've said before here on this show, I could not possibly see John and Paul playing on the songs on All Things Must Pass, just like I couldn't possibly see Paul and George playing on the Plastic Ono Band album, even though George played on Imagine. But, they all went in different directions, as you said. And, they all had incredible solo careers. They're the only band where every single member had a lot of success with singles and albums. And, I think so much more highly of the Beatles for that reason. I enjoy the solo music of the Beatles every bit as much as I enjoy what they did as a band. And yes, the Beatles left while they were on top. It's great to do that. But to also accomplish the success that they had on their own, all four of them, is something that's so beyond extraordinary that most people, take for granted. So in a creative capacity, by the Beatles breaking up, they put out so much more solo music than they would have if they stayed together and only put out music as a band. And I think we benefited from it. And, we got so much more music out of George and Ringo than we ever would have if we kept that format. That's the one thing about the Beatles. They kept on changing and changing and changing, and we admire them for it. But the one thing that was a format within the Beatles was that John and Paul dominated the songs.
Right.
And I think that was a problem towards the end, as I mentioned earlier. So, in a creative capacity, the Beatle breakup was not a tragedy to me.
Right.
The Beatle breakup was tragic in how it affected their friendships and how it frayed, especially with Paul for a while. But in a creative sense, we got so much more music out of them on their own. And they all proved themselves on their own, and they all developed their own styles. Nobody sounds like any of the four of them. And I think, the solo careers are a blessing.
Yep.
Right.
And I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, in those records, even though they weren't a band anymore, in the mid to late 80s, I was still able to go to any record store I want and get any Beatles record that I wanted. still. I mean, that's remarkable in a way that this band had their stuff in print for so long after they had disbanded. You didn't see that with a lot of different acts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
True.
And also to carry that thought, there's so many songs, especially from Paul, that I couldn't possibly see. Would you want John to be playing on Silly Love Songs?
I don't think you would have.
No.
Yeah, but no. And so many things like George's songs from Leaving the Material World work out on Beatles albums. I don't know, but then I wasn't necessarily thinking in terms of everything would play out as it did. It would be the same songs only with the Beatles. I wasn't thinking like that. Everybody has their own thought process.
Yeah.
But I'm just so happy with the way it worked out. I like what you said. It wasn't a big tragedy that the Beatles broke up, or whatever term you used, Ken. Because I mean, personally, sure, but it was the right thing at the right time. It had to happen, and I love the solo careers too. So I love doing the whole Beatle thing. And they end on the top of their game. They can't touch them, and then they go off into 4 different directions to explore and have more fun with, and branch out.
Well said.
Exactly.
I do think Sumi Sue You Blues, though, would have made a great Beatles song.
Somehow I just can't see John and Paul playing on that.
Right, exactly, yeah. Anyways,
Awkward.
Kit, was there one more last question we can find from the audience, or should we call it a night?
Let's do one more, because this is kind of a nice one to end on. This is from Adam James, and he asks, which John Lennon album meant the most to you? And still, he says, still pulls at your heartstrings, and why? I thought that was kind of a nice one to end on. So
these are all tough.
I know.
The whole night has been tough.
Yeah,
I'll start off by saying, I'm telling the story all the time. I have to go with Plastic Ono Band. And when I first heard it, because I was a young, early teen guy, and I was going through whatever people go through. I had issues in my family, and stuff like that, and whatever you go through in high school. Was I in high school at the time? Yeah, I was in high school at the time, just starting out. And I played that album with headphones, and I had the lyrics. I've never heard it before, and it was at night, and I was in the like a front porch in the dark, and all you could see was the moonlight, and it's just the right mood to really get into this album. And I was like, I've never been so affected by an album or music in my life at that time. And everything was touching every nerve, every emotion. I could relate to it. It was like I could have sang some of these songs, and it was all there. These days, though, the other part of the question, it doesn't really hit me the same in that regard. I still acknowledge it as a masterpiece of sorts, but I'm not feeling that kind of angst much anymore or stuff. So you got to be in a certain frame of mind, as we often say, to really get into it, all of it. But that was the one that hit me the most.
Great. I'll agree with Joe. Plastic Ono Band, that was the first solo record I discovered as I was digging into John's solo career. I can relate to some of John's lyrics on that album, so yeah, it moved me a lot. Mother, Working Class Hero, Love, and God were like, just these songs were very impactful to me. They're in my mid-teens as I was discovering this record, and yes, spent many nights listening to that album with headphones on, and being very moved by it. And Joe, there's something to be said for that too, is this album is so powerful. You just don't feel those feelings right now, so maybe you listen to that album further and further in between, because you're not just in that state of mind. But then you always do, when you do get that in that mood, you have that record for you, and it's it's very powerful.
Okay. For me, even though Mind Games is my favorite Lennon album, probably Double Fantasy would do it for me. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with the fact that John was murdered. But the songs there are so personal, and how can you not see the irony in a song like Just Like Starting Over?
Mm.
His life ended and he's talking about his life starting over and life beginning at 40. You know, Woman is my favorite solo John Lennon song. It's one of his greatest ballads ever. And it just shows how much Yoko meant to him and how mature a person he became, calling women the other half of the sky, and for showing me the meaning of success. You know, in his own way, he was so personal in his songs and he told you where he stood at that moment in his life. And watching The Wheels, I look at as being one of the greatest masterpieces. I've really come to appreciate songs, and Eleanor Rigby is the perfect example of this. Eleanor Rigby and For No One, two songs that say a lot in 2 minutes, and they tell a whole story, and they pack it all in just a couple of minutes, and great poetry in both those songs. And watching The Wheels is one of those songs that I just marvel at, because John summarized the last 5 years of his life, where he stood, what was important to him, in just 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes, so eloquently. And that song touches me so much. Beautiful Boy does.
Yeah.
Thinking about, the 5 years that he spent, being a house husband and a father to Sean, and how important Sean was to him. Those songs really touch me. And yeah, they're just very deeply personal. And I probably go with that.
Okay. Kit?
Probably, Plastic Ono Band is a very close second. But I guess I would go with Imagine, because that's the first John Lennon album I ever owned. Had bought it on vinyl, when I was in high school, and the songs, just blew me away with their honesty, and their vulnerability. And there were just times where, like, hearing like Crippled Inside, for example, that was a song that really hit me from the first time I heard it. When he sang that, I thought, wow, he is really, that's the truth. When you hear that no matter, how much you try to, the way you look on the outside change the way you look, and no matter how much you have, how much money you have, one thing you can't hide is when you're crippled inside, and I just thought that was so profound. I just thought, he nailed it. And there was that, and then of course Jealous Guy. I thought that was, so brave of him to be that honest about, his faults. And there were just so many, moments like that on that album that really spoke to me about being honest, about your your faults and your emotions. And then later on, I then listened to Plastic Ono Band, and of course that got even deeper. But Imagine will probably has more of a, I have more of a bit of a soft spot for it, because it's the first John Lennon album I ever owned, and it really just had such a beauty to it, and such a poignancy that and I just had never heard such honest
right
songwriting before. And just at times just like, wow, he's like speaking to me.
Well, yeah, that I first heard Imagine also, just like your same experience as you, and I felt the same of those songs you mentioned. Yeah, but I heard Plastic Ono Band later, but that that one hit me like you were saying. Even that was even like more even when I heard it. But yeah, my first introduction John solo was Imagine album.
Yeah, and I was too young when I heard that. I was too young to get into Plastic Ono Band at that point. I was in high school. I think, because I remember the first time I heard Cold Turkey. That scared the hell out of me. I mean, I was like, what is that? I mean, now I understand it. Now I get where he's coming from. But and it's the same thing with that whole album. I mean, now I get what he's saying and what he's going through. But yeah, when you're that young, Imagine was a little more my speed.
Cool. All right. Well, this was our third attempt at Rack Our Brains, and I think it was a pretty successful one. I liked the questions, and I think they were pretty challenging. And
I didn't get my last one.
You didn't?
No, I didn't either.
Did I
but
skip
that's
you?
okay. I didn't either, but that's
dying to
okay.
get
wow.
I
I guess
to
I'm
be forgetful like I am.
Wow. Okay, Ken, go ahead.
Let's
I'm
go.
so sorry.
Wow, man.
Wow.
Well, this is a question I've been meaning to ask all three of you.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I have a funny answer.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
No,
Maybe we should end the show. Maybe we should end the show.
Good night, everybody.
All right, go ahead.
Let's just say that we were living in a perfect world right now. It's 2021, and let's just say John was still here and George is still here. Erase what really happened. Okay. Also figure that if John and George are still alive, we'd have a lot more music from them, from their solo careers. And let's just say you were each given the chance to interview one of them. You had the choice to pick only one of the four Beatles. Okay, which one would you pick? Now, I'll give you my answer, but I am fortunate I've interviewed Ringo. But for the three of you, I'm curious to find out, if John was still here and George is still here, and I know how much we love Paul and Ringo, which one of the four would you want to talk to the most? And let's just say this is an interview of substance. It's not just promoting the newest album, although that has a purpose too.
Is there any other answer?
So I don't think this is very obvious. You all have your favorites. So why don't we start with Joe?
Yeah. Well, let me think. No, John Lennon all the way. Besides the fact that he's my favorite, he's just substance, deep, a lot to talk about, honesty, candid, being frank. I think it'd be amazing to talk to John Lennon, as much as I love all the Beatles, and George too, I think. And then, I don't put them out, all of them really, Ringo, but, it was a lot of fun. Paul, I think with Paul, I would love to talk to Paul. Hey, Paul, me, Mr. Mayo show. But no, I don't. John.
When I say substance, what I'm referring to is you can ask any question about his career. It doesn't just have to be for the purpose of promoting the latest project, whatever. So, okay. So your answer is John. Tom.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, if this was the 15-year-old me, I'd be John all the way. But as as time has gone on, I would have to say Paul, not just because I do a show on Paul, but I just always found more connection to him musically, and I would just want to sit there and talk to him about his music. I mean, I really, the personal stuff, that doesn't matter to me. Yeah, there's the, John would be so interesting to talk to with, like Joe said, like the, the honesty and and all that stuff to go with the sarcasm maybe with John as well too. But I just think, even just reading this lyrics book, there was just so much in Paul that he just wants to get out, I think. And I would just love to just tap in that brain and just see what else is in there and see what else he would want to get out, but more in a musical standpoint than than a personal one. So yeah, I mean, I would probably go Paul.
All right. Kit, how about you?
Yeah, probably same thing. I mean, with John being a close second. I mean, no doubt about it. Yeah. But probably Paul, because I maybe I've had a slightly bit more of a connection to him. And I agree, Tom, there, you just feel like there's more, there's more stuff. I mean, particularly after reading that lyrics book, there are more stories to tell. And if you ask the right questions,
there you go.
You might get them to say a bit more.
I might be surprised.
If you do your homework and you show them that your stuff and that you're interested in knowing about the music and all, you might be able to get some more stories out of them. So yeah, I would absolutely, I'd love to talk to him about his composing.
Love to rack his brain.
Rack his brain. That's right.
All right, very good. I'll just add that of the three that I didn't interview, I would definitely still go with Paul, mainly because of his body of work. He's written so many different types of songs, so many different styles, different approaches on all of his albums. Albums that he recorded in a few days, albums that he's labored on, so many different producers he's worked with, so many different people he's written songs with. Even though we did a show on the lyrics book, one thing that I failed to mention, and when we covered this, is a disappointment for me, as much as I think this book is really essential, is that there's no mention of writing with Denny Lane. There's no mention of writing with Elvis Costello or Eric Stewart.
Yeah.
Or his brother Michael. I admire Paul for his entire body of work. You'd never know that he had another songwriter besides John Lennon from this book that he just put out. So I'd like to explore all that and what it was like for him to write with all these different people, work with all the different producers, find out what he really thinks is his best work, which he seems to be reluctant to do. He usually just brushes that off and says, that's not for me to decide. That's for you guys to decide. No, let your hair down. Tell us what you really think. Are there songs of yours that you're really proud of that, we don't really know, that you're very proud of, that you wish more people would be familiar with, or albums, He might think Flowers in the Dirt was his best album deep down, or he might think Chaos and Creation was, or he has a tendency to go to his first solo album or talk about his newest one. But we don't really know how he assesses his own career, his solo career. And usually as a point of reference, he always goes back to the Beatles. But there's this whole other life from 1970 on that I'd love to talk to him more about. And I'll love to talk about the Beatles too. But most of his works are his solo catalog.
That's right.
Yeah.
So and the others, I'd love to talk to John or George. I have a feeling if it was George, it might turn into a spiritual conversation.
Yeah.
Well, this is based on what we know. Can I read a comment from Robert Henry, which I think is interesting?
Sure.
He says, Tom and Kit, well, anyway, not a fair answer. To say there's more to ask Paul goes against Ken's premise that John and George were still alive and had produced music that could have been as good or better than many of Paul's post-1980 albums. Who knows how much body of work John would have had if he was alive.
I think I understood the premise well enough.
Well, John would have had more albums.
But still, right.
Maybe.
Still would have, but then don't ask that question, that kind of question. Then because then it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
You can say that about a lot of the questions.
Exactly.
It's all about Paul. Right. I know it's all about Paul. He's the man. I get it. He's still here. He's been around 40 years longer. But I want more substance. I want more than just how I wrote songs or maybe. I want to know more about what you think of this going on in the world and that going on. I want to talk as a person.
I think he exposed a lot of that in the lyrics book.
Yeah,
how his mind works.
Yeah,
for Paul. Yeah, I guess for Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess it depends on what you want out of the interview. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you wanted, more info about his composing process, his creative process, then he's your guy.
Yeah. And even though we don't know what music John would have released or George would have released, we know their styles. You know, they probably could
Up
have
to that point.
continued. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I could see John putting out more albums like Double Fantasy and Milk and Honey. You know, we don't know. We really
Yeah,
don't know how his
obviously.
music might have changed
Mhm. Yeah, we'll
with
never know that.
with current music
Mhm.
trends. We don't know.
Mhm.
George had a tendency not to care about music trends.
Right.
So we know that much about them. But we also know what they're like as people, and that also factors in. It's not
Mhm.
just about the music, although to me the music is what matters the most, but
Right.
Yeah.
that's me.
Great. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Very good.
All right.
Kit, you still have a question then, right?
All right. We'll do our final. I guess I think this is the final one.
Yeah,
I'm
this
not
is the
sure.
last one.
Last one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, all right. We've been saying up until now, Tom, you mentioned previous ones about no compilation albums, no compilation. Well, this one's about compilations. So,
All right.
so now compilations are allowed. So, so again, going back to solo, what do you think is, what is a solo compilation album that you go to, again and again? I mean, what is a solo comp album that you think is well done, has the hits you want, that you would recommend to somebody that you might think you want to introduce the artist to? What do you think is one that you pull off the shelf once in a while?
Does it have to be a
Well-
legitimately released one?
None of those Russian ones.
No,
Those are the best ones, but I know we can't use those.
imports.
All right.
Russian imports. Those are the ones I reach for the most.
I know.
The one that
Yeah.
just jumps in my mind automatically, and it could be like a 1A, 1B, but I mean the 1A for me would be Wings' Greatest, even though we is crazy that Listen to What the Man Said is not on there. I think that's just still
that's
a
weird.
great representation of Wings from start A to start B from that period of time, and that has a little bit of sprinkled of everything, of all the different lineups and everything. You got number ones in there, you got top tens, and you get the top 40s with like high, so you get a little bit of sprinkle of everything from Paul from 71 up into what was it, the 78 with a little luck on there, and then plus you get the full version of With a Little Luck, and then the full version of Junior's Farm on there as well. So and I think that's kind of like a disadvantage with the Shade Fish, unfortunately, because a lot of those songs are edited. You're not really getting the full versions. 1B would probably be the Blasphemy Pass.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a good one. All right.
Who's next?
Who's whoever's ready.
Can I could bounce off Tom and just say that's the first thing that popped in my mind. Wings' Greatest always pops in my mind first. I mean, arguably, you might be able to say, "Oh, well, there's some other compilations that have more on them, or more bang for your buck." But I have a real connection to that. I don't know. When I bought Wings' Greatest in the late 70s, it was just really, really cool to have all that stuff. It's the only place easily you could get High, and Another Day, and Junior's Farm, and Mull of Kintyre, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I always feel one little snag is that they don't have Listen to What the Man Said somehow on there. But yeah, that's still a favorite of my compilations. I think delivers the goods all the way through.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you could
I'll
argue,
go with
you could make a case that you could have turned that into a double album as well. I mean, there's
Oh,
still stuff
yeah.
there that you could have stretched it, with, Sea Moon, the live version of maybe I'm Amazed, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Listen to What the Man Said, Girls' School, even, Sally G, even you can make a case for that to be on there. So
I wonder if a good question would have been if you had to take one off to put on Listen to What the Man Said, what would it be? That's not easy.
Yeah.
I think High, you would have to take it on there because it was a top 40, not necessarily
No, it went to number 10. It went to number
was it
10?
10? Yeah, okay. But
I'm thinking,
Listen to What the Man Said was number 1. So I mean,
right.
if whatever the lowest charted song was, I think that's what you take off.
Okay.
But it's tough.
Ken?
It's tough.
Ken?
Well,
Yeah.
I think, first of all, compilations serve their purpose, but they're what I usually listen to the least, because if it's the greatest hits, those are the songs that I've heard the most and maybe tire of the most. But if I was to recommend to anybody, I personally would prefer a double disc compilation, one that has the hits and also goes deeper.
Yeah.
So for me, with Paul, I would probably pick Wingspan, because it has all the stuff that's in Wings' Greatest and Listen to What the Man Said. And it's got a lot of album cuts up until that point, 1984. I liked Pure McCartney a lot, but I think there's probably a lot of songs on there that maybe you may not feel represented his best. But those were all handpicked by Paul, just the personal favorites from him. There was a compilation on John called Working Class Hero that I've always liked.
Yeah,
that
was a good
It had all the hits that you need, everything. And then it also had the deep cuts too, like Out the Blue, you know? And whenever these songs get some attention that deserve to be noticed, and most people don't know them because they weren't singles, I tend to favor those. You know, Shaved Fish would be a disappointment then. The John Lennon collection, when it first came out, was better because it included all the double fantasy stuff. So I'd probably go with Working Class Hero. I've never been happy with any George Harrison compilation. George deserves at least 2 discs. You should probably have 3 or 4 CD compilation. But I think with Ringo, Photograph was really good.
That's a good one
I mean,
too.
Everything that was on Blast from Your Past is on Photograph. And then it keeps it up to date with all of the stuff since then.
That's a very good compilation.
Photograph is definitely really good for 1 disc. Although Ringo deserves 2 discs for a compilation.
Oh yeah,
they all at least deserve 2. So that's what I would pick.
Okay.
Cool. Yep, and actually, Photograph was going to be my number 1 pick for compilations, because I thought that was very well done. Because to me, a really great compilation is, of course, including the big hits, but throwing in some songs that perhaps weren't huge hits, or maybe are some deeper tracks, having a nice combination. And Photograph was a really nice surprise when it came out, because it did indeed have Photograph, Back Up Boogaloo, Oh My My, I mean the stuff you would expect. But then it had Weight of the World, glad to see that, but it had Never Without You, the Act Naturally duet with Buck Owens. I mean, it had some just wonderful stuff on there. And I mean, really, as you said, if you're introducing someone to Ringo Starr, give them this. I mean, it's just a wonderful compilation. And as you said, there still has to be a good one done on George. I mean, there's just, I mean, I have, was Best of Dark Horse, I think was the last one that I got. And it's okay. And we've done a show on that. I know. And we concluded there still hasn't been, except for, I think there was a Russian import.
Yeah, that's really good.
That comes close, but so interesting. Okay, I was just particularly curious to your Paul. So Wings' Greatest is still ranks highly.
For me,
Interesting. Okay.
Because even though Blast from Your Past is very short, for its time, though, that was one I used to pick out a lot. Because that's even though it's short and sweet, it's got a lot of good Ringo on there for the time.
Absolutely, agreed.
75.
Okay, we're good now. I think we got everybody.
We got everybody.
Well, we got another. We got another 20 minutes, right?
We got yes. So we're gonna do that right now. We're gonna really quickly rapid fire what we've got going on as well. So, Kit, why don't we start with you?
Okay, well, first of all, you can find us on, of course, our Facebook page, which you're on right now. You can find us on our YouTube channel. Please, if you're over there, subscribe. Thank you again for all of your support, and our channel is growing, and we can't thank you enough. You can find us on Twitter at talkmoretalk1, the number 1. You can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. We love your feedback. feedback and any ideas you would like to see for future shows, please send those along. And we also want to give a shout out to Beatle Ed, who runs our show and many of our individual shows on Fab4 Radio. And I saw he tuned in earlier tonight. So give a shout out to him as well. So you can check us out there. And of course, you can find us on any podcasting platform you can think of. As far as I go, if you live in the Chicago area, I am going to be signing books this Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, the 26th, at Blue Village Vinyl. I'll be signing that very book, Songs We Are Singing. It's at 12 o'clock Central. There's going to be live music. Yep, I'll be signing it just like that. And there will be live music. I will be there at 1 o'clock signing books. You get a free tote with every purchase. This is my first book signing in 2 years. I can't believe it's been that long with all the craziness. So come on down and I'll sign your book for you. And I think that's about it right now.
Okay. Thank you, Kit. Joe?
Hi, everyone. You know me, Joe Mayo. Make sure you subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Me and Mr. Mayo. Okay? And recently, I did a show that's just up there, fresh and new, on Fab Gab, the little series that I have, and I had Kit on there and Tom on there as guests, along with Matthew Street, my regular co-host, Fab Gab, and we talked about underappreciated Beatles songs, which of course goes into some of the lesser known tracks Kit talks about in her book. All right. And also this coming, there it is again, right? This coming Sunday, the 28th, depending on when you see this, I'm going to be doing another Fab Gab. We're just going to be going loosey-goosey, talking all about the Get Back docuseries after we've seen all 3 parts. So that's the 28th. I don't know what time yet, but it's going to be on the Mean Mr. Mayo YouTube channel live. All right.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Ken?
Well, if you joined us earlier, prior to doing the show tonight, my co-hosts of Things We Said Today were very fortunate to interview Peter Jackson. And I still can't believe I'm saying this because the interview ran about 4 hours long.
Amazing.
And anything you'd ever want to know about Get Back, he talks about. And I'm also very flattered that he said to us that he listens to our show. That alone made my day.
Wow.
So yeah, that's going to be going up by tomorrow. And so that'll get you all ready to watch Get Back over Thanksgiving weekend, those 3 days in a row. On Things We Said Today, we just did a show also on Paul's book on his lyrics. We also did a show not too long ago on underappreciated Beatles songs too. So you can hear our picks as well as what Joe just had on Fab Gab. And we will be doing a show on Get Back, as we'll be doing with Talk More Talk as well.
Yes.
That's coming your way. On my YouTube channel, a lot has happened in the last few weeks.
Yes.
I just did an interview with Ken Womack and Jason Krupa to talk about All Things Must Pass Away. They were great guests on our show. They were also on Things We Said Today. And as I said in my show on my channel, whenever I know that I'm going to be interviewing someone and they're on several shows, I always save questions for my channel. So just about everything that I asked Ken and Jason were subjects we didn't cover in both the podcast shows. So it'll be somewhat fresh. It's not just a rehash of what we talked about in both podcasts. So they were great. I interviewed Mark Lapidus, the founder of the Fest for Beatle Fans, to talk about the beginnings of the fest, how it all started, and some of the special guests that he's had through the years. And we know that, fingers crossed, if all works out, we will have a Fest for Beatle Fans April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at the Hyatt
hopefully
Regency.
a Talk More Talk panel.
Yes, the Hyatt Regency on the Hudson. Also, I interviewed Kevin Harrington again for the second time. And after I interviewed him the first time, this is the guy that he had a long career working at NEMS and working for Brian Epstein, moved on to work at the Saville Theater with Tony Bramwell, and then he became what he called a studio roadie for the Beatles. And the second time, we talked about also being on the Apple rooftop in the first interview. This time we talked about Mal Evans and Neil Aspinall and his relationship with them, a little bit about Alan Klein and the Beatle breakup, and also his life after the Beatles, where he was a roadie and a stage manager for a lot of acts around the world. And so we had that. And then on top of all that, we did a show, the four of us. I came up with this idea, you know, through the years on my show, Every Little Thing, I've done this thing, should have been singles. And so I thought that I would ask these guys to come up with 3 songs that were never chosen as singles by the Beatles as a group in the United States during their reign from 1964 through The Long and Winding Road in 1970. So each of them gave 3 choices. I gave 3 of my own. Lots of people have written in with their choices. It was a real fun show.
It was.
So yeah, we've gotten a great response to that. If any of you want to watch that, please do so on my YouTube channel, which is Ken Michaels Radio. Write in with your choices. You know, for all the hits that the Beatles had in the United States, they could have had twice as many, really, when you come down to it. There were albums that didn't even have any singles. But yeah, that's happening on my YouTube channel. My website, kenmichaelsradio.com, has weekly Beatles trivia. You can win 1 of 10 prizes every single week. And new trivia will be posted right after this show ends. So check out the website. Email me if you'd like to at everylittlething@att.net. And please subscribe to Ken Michaels Radio and Things We Said Today.
Of course.
And Talk More Talk.
Of course.
And Two Legs.
Yes.
Mean
it was
Mr.
fun.
Mean Mr. Mayo.
Yes, Mean Mr. Mayo. It was fun. You know, the 4 of us talking Beatles. It's just a lot of fun.
It always is. Always is.
Yeah, always is. In the Two Legs world, Andy and I, we've been busier than ever. We just dropped our last episode this past Saturday, where we had the great Lawrence Juber back, and we talked all about his memories of the '79 UK tour, which was a lot of fun. Learned a lot. You won't want to miss that. You know, I had no clue that the Japanese tour was booked at the same time as the UK tour. So I mean, there's a lot of little interesting facts that that we wanted to kind of get answers to, and he obliged, and it was a great time talking with him. Before that, we did our lyrics episode on the lyrics book, and our thoughts on that. Yesterday, we recorded with this wonderful newcomer. Her name is Natalia Cardenas, and she's the host of a wonderful podcast called She Loves You, where she talks about all about the women in the Beatles' lives. And she just dropped her latest episode, which was about Linda McCartney, so you can check that out. This was part 2 of our series called Women and Wives, where we just talked about the women and obviously in McCartney's wives. And it was a perfect song title for the for the
Paul
episode.
wrote it just for you.
It was a gift. It was when I saw the track listing on McCartney 3, I was like, thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. So that will be dropped this Saturday. So be on the lookout for that. And yes, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, our YouTube channel. Please check that out. That's where our video cast is. We got a great slate for December coming up, and we're looking forward to that. I'm sure we're going to be live after every episode of Get Back has aired as well. So that, look for us around 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, if you dare, if you're awake or not.
I'll be watching.
Yeah, but we all are, like I said at the beginning of the show, we are all so much looking forward to this series, and just can't wait to see what we see. And Ken, you got a little bit of a 4-hour scoop prior to, so listen, can't wait to listen to that episode. So thank you everybody for checking out this show tonight. Kit will have it up on the audio and the YouTube as soon as she can,
and stay tuned for information. We are going to be doing at least one special show on Get Back over the weekend right here. So stay tuned. We will post
Stay tuned.
information on our Facebook page.
Absolutely. This whole weekend is going to be nothing but get back. You know, so be ready. Be ready. So thank you once again. So for Ken Michaels, Joe Mayo, Kid O'Toole, I'm Tom Hunyadi saying this is more than touch and go. Take care, everybody.